Well, every day we have hundreds of conversations with people, but have you ever stopped to think about just what you're really saying?
Whether it's a casual chat or an in-depth, deep and meaningful, being a good conversationalist is a skill and it takes training and practice, apparently. But if you weren't born with the gift of the gab, don't despair. Author Hugh says it comes down to remembering just 3 steps. Good morning to you, Hugh.
Good morning.
We've all had an awkward exchange, haven't we? We haven't quite known what to say to the other person. What makes a good conversation?
You're so right, Kylie. We do all have these awful exchanges, and I find it fascinating. Here's one of the most important life skills that we need to have to get on in life, and there's no training for it. It's like food; it sustains us. It's what separates us from the animal kingdom, if you like.
Yeah.
But we're not taught it at school. We're not taught it at university. We're just left to sort of muddle through and work it out for ourselves. So, hence the book, The Art of Conversation. It's a recipe book. Dip in and get out some tips. And the 3 ones to, if you want to just take 3 things away from today, is be conscious about what you think, what you say and what you do. I think if you can get those 3 things in alignment, you come over as a very authentic conversationalist.
Do you have to do those 3 all at once? Or can you... That's a lot to think. That's a lot to think of, and maybe I didn't put that into practice right then. But do I have to think of all those things at once?
No, I think it's about if you're having important conversations. So occasionally, we need to be sure of the words that we're saying. The very words that we choose to say can really make a difference. I'll give you a rather embarrassing example. My wife the other day got herself dressed up for a night out. She was looking fantastic. She came downstairs. "Darling, how do I look?" And I said, "Darling, you look fantastic. But don't you think your red shoes would go better with that dress?" And she gave me one of those looks, Kylie, that you may have received yourself. I don't know.
I just gave you then.
Yes. And she turned tail, she disappeared, totally changed the outfit, and the evening started off a little bit cold. And we talked about it later, and she said, "Well, you were doing really well up until you said 'but.'" And at that point, I just didn't believe everything else you'd said, so you totally discounted the wonderful compliment you've given me.
You've got some other tips too, haven't you? Just general tips to take us through about how we can have a better conversation with someone.
Well, here's a really good tip. Yeah. Take off the glasses.
They're very cool
glasses. Take off the glasses. Why do security guards wear glasses? It's a barrier. We're not connecting very well. So there's a tip for you. Right. Also, bring your conversation into your conscious mind. We do a lot of chatting, the gift of the gab, it's just happening, the brain's working really fast, but we're not consciously thinking about how we're having conversations. So the first thing I'd say is just bring it up consciously. Think about the attitude you bring into a conversation.
Right.
If you think somebody's going to be boring, guess what? They're going to appear boring to you. And your attitude to them, they'll realise that. Subconsciously, they'll realise that. So they're going to be boring for you. So decide what you want out of a conversation, become conscious in it. Praise. William James, who's considered the father of modern-day psychology, said that the most important thing that we need is to be affirmed and to be praised and congratulated. So tell people, catch them doing great stuff and let them know. Start with a compliment. In the corporate world, constructive feedback, one of the classic ideas is, praise, criticise, praise. So start with praise, then say what's it we'd like to different. I think for parents, this is equally true. Trying to get your children to do what it is you want them to do. If we're not careful, we spend all the time saying no rather than what it is we want.
If that person's boring and we don't like them, do we still have to praise them?
Well, I think this comes back to the think part, isn't it? As to Gandhi says, when what you think, what you say and what you do is in alignment, you're in a very happy space. Yeah. So if you want them to like you, then you might need to change your thinking.
The hardest thing sometimes, conversation starters. You've got some tips for how to get a conversation started. Say you're going to a fancy party, you're talking to the boss, you don't know what to say.
Yeah. Once again, I think look for things that start a conversation. Just, it's the Nike thing, just do it. Look for, hey, I love your shirt, Larry, that's just a beautiful shirt.
I love your shirt.
A man after my own heart learnt that, vertical stripes makes you look a bit thinner. Good choice.
That's not why I'm wearing
if there's a, beautiful watch you're wearing, Kylie, how long have you had that? Did somebody give that to you? So just find, something to kick off the conversation.
Are you worried about your art dying off? The kids today, SMS, MySpace, Facebook. The art of conversation is a dying art.
Great. I hope that's not true. I think it's a changing art.
Yes.
And I think this technology is fantastic. I'm a bleeding-edge adopter of technology myself. I love all the gadgets. Yeah. But I think we have to recognise there are times when it's inappropriate. I mean, yes, I think the younger generation are certainly more adept than I am at using the technology, but you lose the sense of the visual connection.
Of course, yeah.
You lose the tone. You can't feel, do they really feel passionate about this or not? You're not getting that tone. So I think choose it wisely. There are some things that technology is fantastic for, confirming where you are, a time to meet, you know, information, fantastic. But if it's something really important and there's a risk that you'll be misunderstood, my advice is pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Or, hey, how about walking around the office, you know, those 10 feet and actually speaking to them rather than sending them an email.
And having a conversation.
Having a conversation.
Good talking to you today, Hugh.
Thank you very much, Kylie. Thank you, Larry.
Lovely to see you. And Hugh's book, The Art of Conversation, is in bookstores right now.